Hello, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to our MPF webinar for the month of April, number 59 in the series, since Uri and I concocted this crazy webinar series. Uri, how are you?
I am doing great, John. Good to see you. And yeah, 59?
Yeah, yeah, hard to believe,
Wow.
right?
Wow.
Yeah, yeah.
We've been
So
cranking them
COVID does
out
to,
religiously every month, third
yep.
Wednesday. We got a good rhythm here, and we'll make an announcement next month. We're going to have to move it around because the
Yeah.
ALA meeting is in Nashville. And it's spot on when I've got to be upstage talking about culture and profitability is the topic. But good to see you, my friend. Or Morris, how are you doing?
I'm doing fantastic today, John. I'm doing
Excellent.
well. Weather has finally started to turn here in New York, which is a good thing. It feels like it finally starting to feel like spring.
And it looks like you're in the big city.
I am. I am. Where else would I be?
Oh,
This
you
is home
might
for
be
me.
out in Brooklyn. You might be in Deal
Mm.
at your summer place. I don't know. There are lots of places you could be, Tabush. And Corey, welcome to you. Good to see you, my friend. How are things in California?
All is well. The weather's good. You know how we do it here. So Q1 was great. We're already looking into those final numbers. A good portion of the way into Q2, and so lots of good things happening here.
I know you got some people impacted by the fires out there a couple of months ago. Are
Yep.
things getting back to normal?
Uh, Normal-ish. I mean, it's going to be at least a 3 to 5 year redevelopment play at large.
Oh,
So Altadena, which is essentially North Pasadena for all intents and purposes, which is where our primary office is, was heavily impacted. A large portion of it just completely wiped. So there's already been a lot of rebuilding activity, or at least the first stages, but it's going to be a few years.
Unbelievable. Well, good luck to you
Mm.
all. You know, uh, Boy, I think Josh, your managing partner, was scheduled to do a program with us, and I got a call from
Yeah.
him that morning saying,
Yeah.
"Hey, John, I can't do your webinar. My house burned down yesterday."
Yeah.
And
oh
it's like,
man.
what?
Yeah.
You're going to cancel the webinar? What, Josh?
Yeah.
Ugh.
But I just couldn't
Yeah.
believe it. Changes
Oh, yeah.
changes everything. And take
Yeah.
good care of your people when times are stressed out. Um,
Yeah.
I,
Yeah. No, the,
I,
the way the team came together was perfect.
yeah. Well, and that's just a demonstration that you really care about your people and their well-being and making sure they're okay, and they
Yeah.
appreciate that. I think that really endures some loyalty and on all that good stuff. So we'll get started here shortly at the top of the hour. We're going to be talking about technology and aligning technology with your firm's strategy, really taking a firm approach to your investments in technology. It's happening all so fast. And we've got data, as always, to share. And Morris runs Tabush Group out of New York City, does a lot of work with smaller, mid-sized firms on technology integration and movement to the cloud. And Corey is the COO at what are you, 90 lawyers now, Corey? Lagerlof. Every time I talk to you, you got a couple dozen more lawyers, it seems, on board.
No, we're hovering around 50. We're keeping it at
50?
50 right
Okay,
now.
cool. Well, let's get started. It's 2 o'clock, so we'll formally begin this month's MPF webinar. We call this series Building the Law Firm of the Future. And technology is certainly an important part of the future of the legal profession. And delighted to have with us Corey Castillo, Morris Tabush. And let me go ahead and welcome Uri Gutfreund, my co-host and co-moderator on these programs. Uri's at Ames and Goff. They sell risk management products to law firms. How you doing, Uri?
I am doing great, John. Thanks for having me. We were talking on the pre-show show, and if those of you missed it, that's where the real action is. But on the pre-show, we were counting this as number 59. Is that right, John?
Yes, yes. We were I was 7 when we started. Yeah.
59. I'd like to say it seems like fewer, but it seems like more. We do this all the time, John.
Yeah, and we're having a good time, and people really seem to be finding value. The feedback is incredibly positive, both directly when we
Yeah.
depart ways this afternoon, and then just anecdotally when you're out and about, and people are absorbing this stuff and really seem to value it. So thank you again for being part of it. And Corey Castillo, one of our guest speakers, the CEO at Lagerlof, based in Pasadena, California. Corey, how are you?
Good, good. Thanks for
And
inviting me.
what do we need to know about Lagerlof, and what do we need to know about Corey Castillo?
Let's see. So, Lagerlof, we're a private client, private wealth general practice firm with a presence in Pasadena, Encino, and El Segundo, which is three of the four corners of LA County, and a remote office up in Seattle. About me, I am a non-attorney COO. So I came on about 5 years ago during a three-way merger where we were combining three smaller, maybe small mid-sized firms to create a larger firm. And with that, you can imagine all the integration necessary, all of the organizational design, all of the culture assessment, all of the tech integration, um, financial integration. So at that time, we came in, and that's what Lagerlof is today. Um, and so my contribution from a leadership perspective has been more on the business strategy side, marrying our practice with our operations to produce the best outcomes at scale and in a sustainable way. So that's what I've been zeroed in on relentlessly for the
And I like
last five
the
years.
first thing you said is I'm a non-lawyer COO, and
Mhm.
we encourage firm get that non out of your firm vocabulary. Non-equity, non-lawyer, non-billable. This non stuff is important to running a successful law firm, I believe, and
Mhm.
our friend Jen Johnson uses the term revenue enablers
Yep. Yep.
for the C-suite. You help the lawyers do better at what they do, which is
Mhm.
practice law, and you take care of the business side of the shop, which I think is great if the lawyers are willing to let you do your thing.
Yep.
So thank you, Corey and Morris Tabush. How are you?
I'm
Morris is
doing
in New York,
fantastic
Tabush
today.
Group. And what do we need to know
Yeah.
about Tabush, and what do we need to know about Morris? Morris?
Well, which one do you want first, the Morris or the Tabush?
Whichever you think is more important. How's that?
So obviously, you know that I wasn't very creative in coming up with the name of the firm. Um, but actually, quick story going back 25 years ago when I was forming the firm, I had a whole bunch of names written down on a piece of paper, and I couldn't make up my mind. The lawyer said, "All right, we're just going to go with Tabush Group to start. When you come up with a new name, we'll do a DBA or something to change your name." And 25 years later, never came up with a new name for the firm yet. But so about us, we have been for 25 years and are managing, implementing, supporting IT for small to mid-sized firms. Last year, we started a new assessment product, which has been very popular for firms who kind of know they need help, but they don't really know where or why or how. So that's been successful at a few firms. Based in New York, our employees are spread out throughout the country, and our clients are currently in 27 states, I believe, plus DC. Myself, I am also a non-lawyer. Everything I know about the law is either from working with law firms or watching Law and Order. But I love coming up with solutions, building systems, things that are sustainable, that solve problems. Been studying leadership for a long time, implementing some different leadership practices at our firm. And I always say, John and Uri, at all your programs, I'm there as an attendee as much as I am as faculty because 98% of what you guys talk about applies just as much to us as it does to the law firms. So I'm really
And
looking forward to
I
the
like
MPF conference. See
I
what I'm
like
going
the
to pick up
name of
there.
your company, Morris. Last name Group, and I kind of did that and added a the in front. Because
Yeah.
that the with a capital T really conveys some importance and status to the outfit. But welcome, gentlemen. Good to have you with us. Both Morris and Corey have participated on our faculty over the years, both live sessions and a couple of webinars as well. So welcome. Good to have you. Uh, Going to be a fast-paced program as always, very conversational, lots of back and forth. We may not always agree, but hopefully you'll take away a few action items and get fortified with some good benchmarking data. Uh, Before we do get started, a couple of shameless plugs. Our webinar series ongoing, number 59, our big signature event. I call it the Leadership Conference. We're sold out. It's in Atlanta next month. And if,
John,
however,
John, John, you'll squeeze somebody
yes,
in, won't you? You'll squeeze somebody in, won't
well,
you?
we may be able to make a few
Good.
special
You
exceptions.
promised me that I get one exception
We get a few
if I need.
cancellations always, and we can work people into the room. But for all intent and purposes, that room's getting pretty full, and we'll have about 110, 120 managing partners from all over the U.S. Didn't see it coming, but as you think it through, it's not surprising. We're not getting a lot of Canadian participation this year, which is a little frustrating, but it is what it is. We do a fall program in Chicago. We've been doing a women's program since COVID, by women, for women, and we're working on the details of that with Elise Holtzman, who's going to co-chair that project with us. We try to get a newsletter out there and other things to help managing partners find resources and community. So if you haven't been to one of our conferences, check it out, and I guarantee you'll find it time well spent. Uri, let me kick this back to you. You set us up for today's program.
Sure. Well, today's program, Aligning Tech and Strategy, really going to talk about from two real seasoned professionals, Morris in the tech space exclusively, Corey with COO responsibilities. How does IT and technology fit in into smaller mid-sized firms? Today, we have 70 managing partners and law firm leaders registered for today. We're going to share with you the data that you gave us when you registered, as well as we'll have polling questions throughout. The recording, as well as the polling results, will be sent to you, as well as handout material, some really good stuff from our panelists today and other articles that we find of interest on topic. And the one thing we ask, I mean, really, it's really as everyone knows, it's free
Small
for you.
ask, right, Uri?
It's
It's a
the one
small
thing,
ask.
it's a small ask when you close out of today's webinar. A short survey will pop up. Give us your feedback. Would you like less? And what would you like to see in the future? That's all. 3 questions. So help us help you. And let's get started with today's program, John.
Hey, and believe it or not, we read these reviews. The
We
good, the
do.
bad topics. Give us your input. Uri and I think we're smart, but we can't read minds. So tell us what you're looking for. Among the handouts we're going to be sending you, follow-ups, is this recently released report that Morris, his company, just produced. 140 law firms weighing in on technology. And Morris has been out presenting this at ALA chapters around the country, and you'll be getting this as part of your follow-up. Morris, anything you want to say about the report before we jump into the meat of today's program?
I'm not going to do a spoiler alert other than to say that, those lunch and learns that we just completed, I think we did 5 different cities of lunch and learns, and the feedback was amazing. That's data. We do our survey every year, our legal IT and ops survey. This was our 5th year doing it. And the insights, the data is great, and the discussions that we had around the data. Why are managing partners saying X while administrators are saying Y? Why is, this a bigger concern this year, and that's less of a concern than it used to be? So really great discussions and meetings. I think the last one I did, was it last week in Atlanta, John? 2
Yes,
weeks
we
ago.
were
I
in
don't
Atlanta.
remember.
Yeah,
Can't
last
remember
week, I
where.
think Wednesday.
Yeah, that was great.
hmm
So, no, great. Everybody will be getting a copy of that. Look out in your email. John will send it in the follow-up.
Yeah, we find so much of this stuff put out there is geared toward big law, the AmLaw 200, and we really try to hone in and assist that smaller and mid-sized firm segment. There's 25 to say 100 lawyer firm. That's our sweet spot, and give them data that's relevant to smaller and mid-sized firms. So we bring it on in lots of different ways. Here's our first polling question. You guys know the drill by now. Let me pull this up. And if you would, mostly for the benefit of Morris and Corey, firm size. How big is your law firm in terms of lawyer head count? And watching the votes come in. or Corey and Morris, can you see these votes coming in as they roll in?
Right.
Yep.
So yes, and I know you
Okay.
usually ask me to guess and predict the results, so I
Well,
could kind of see
sometimes, but
them.
I didn't know if you had a cheat monitor thing going on. That's what I wanted to confirm. But here are our firm sizes today, and sure enough, right on our sweet spot. Most firms kind of in that. Well, we have a good scattering of firms in terms of firm sizes represented today. So let me come back to our screen share. Uri, am I in the right place bringing on the data? Our
You
sheep?
are?
And there's that curious sheep in the herd that we got your attention. And AI, we're going to talk about AI. And this is an opportunity to break out of that herd and get to the front and really innovate and I think make some noise. It's still very early. When you register, I'll invite comment from our panel and then let Morris kind of take the lead once we get through these set of questions. But when you register, we ask you a couple of questions, and here's what you told to us: the spend as a percentage of total firm revenue for IT, including your training and staffing. What is that percentage? And Ori and I have talked a little bit about this. Corey, what say you to this data?
It's a little, I would have guessed a little higher than 5%, but perhaps some folks might consider systems and licenses separate from the IT line item. Uh, because typically, I see it a little closer to 6-7%, but that 4 to 5% is surprising to me. But
And
again,
it's
maybe
that
that doesn't
low.
consider, yeah, maybe it doesn't consider license, maybe it doesn't consider cybersecurity. Maybe those are accounted for in the systems line item or the insurance line item, but
Yeah, I tried to
overall,
catch it all in there, including the staffing, the training piece of it, not just the hardware and software. But
Right.
Morris, what say you to these results?
So, so the average that we typically see is 6 to 8%. Again, and this fluctuates by firm size. Typically, believe it or not, larger firms spend a bigger percentage of their revenue on IT, but it could also be that larger firms are better accounting for it. Some are the mid-sized firms may consider their IT staff just administrative staff, and they don't properly classify internal staff as IT. As well, on the smaller side, you still see a handful of small, and I mean 10 lawyer and under firms trying to go at it themselves. They just give it to, whoever's best with technology at the firm.
mm-hmm.
Whoever knows how to use the iPhone better than everybody else. Okay, great. You're in charge of IT. Go figure it out.
Right, right. The youngest lawyer in the room. You must know
Yeah.
something about this. You had our
Mhm.
IT task force.
Yeah.
Uri, you and I talked about this as well. What surprised you looking at this survey result?
Yeah, I mean, we've been talking always for a long time about that 4 to 5%. So to see that 27% are spending more and, 10% are spending more than 9%, that's a big chunk. And I would, that's those higher numbers. That surprised me. That surprised me. John, you too?
Well, we asked the question about marketing a long, long time, percentages spent on marketing, and it's always
Mhm.
been 2 to 4, 2 to 4. But do you count the salaries? Do you count directory listings? Do you count bar association dues? It's hard to get that apples
Mhm.
to apples comparison. Boy, a lot of firms starting to spend some money here, and the Thomson, or not Thomson Reuters, Cushman Wakefield people talked about this long before COVID. That
Yeah.
technology was quickly surpassing rent for many firms as the number two
Mhm.
expense item after salaries. So technology is really coming on, and as firms are renegotiating their leases, downsizing their floor space, accommodating remote work, I think we're going to see technology really secure the number two expense item in most budgets at smaller and mid-sized law firms. That's what
One
I
thing
think.
I will also say, just from some of our own clients, the ones that spend more on technology are generally more successful and more profitable firms. So just because they're spending 3% more than somebody else, but actually it's giving it's paying itself
Yeah.
back.
And it's hard, Morris, as you said, insurance defense firms very different from a personal injury firm, very different
Yeah.
from an IP boutique, and it's hard to
Mhm.
get that real granular apples to apples
Mhm.
comparison. But this, you see our sample size, and most of the firms on this call are going to be mid-sized commercial law firms for the most part.
Right. Right.
mostly business firms. We asked as well, Morris, you provided these questions for us, so I'll ask your reaction to this one, which is who's doing the IT work at your firm? Is it mostly outsourced or do you bring it in-house? And we ask you to lean one way or the other on this question. It didn't give you, oh, a blend. No, which way are you
Mhm.
leaning, in or out? What say you to this? Any surprise?
So this actually matches the question that we had in our survey, in our survey that we did late last year. And what we've seen is more and more, actually, no, fewer firms are doing it all in-house. That 12% that you show here, 4 years ago, that was 20%. But
Wow.
more firms are realizing that as IT grows, there's specializations, and that specialization is really, really important. So the firm that used to do everything in-house is realizing, hey, for cybersecurity is a number one example. Nobody should be doing their cyber in-house. And then there's application specialties and other things where, hey, we need these functions. We don't need our help desk outsourced. We don't need our infrastructure maintenance outsourced, but we need these few things outsourced. So we're seeing a bigger growth in the middle two options. And obviously the first option, all outsourced, that's for the smaller firms, typically under
Mhm.
30 or 40 lawyers. It's most common. The bigger firms, it's hard. Once you're north of 50 lawyers, you need some level of IT talent in house.
Corey, how do you guys handle it at your firm in terms of what you do in versus out?
We're mostly in-house. Consistent with what Morris said, we might outsource cybersecurity, and that's not necessarily a cost play or an expense play, but more a diligence play. I think these numbers are consistent with the firm sizes that we saw earlier, but I think there's a few factors that go into it. One, size, and I can put that in the same bucket as cost or affordability for what's necessary and what that investment might be. But I know there's a large trend happening with larger resources on a fractional basis. So, for example, some
Fractional.
firms when they're bumping up against a 25 attorney count, they're not necessarily small, but they're not necessarily big, but they need to bridge that gap. They might invest in, let's say, a fractional financial executive. And I think with cyber, it might be a similar thing where they might invest in a fractional resource
So
because
yeah.
they don't necessarily need that full-time dedicated leader. But aside from cost and aside from functional necessity, that diligence piece is big. And so, with the example of cybersecurity, I do believe having an outside third party that can act as an additional control is a good step to take.
Mm.
We're seeing more and more fractional C-suite personnel, CMO, CIO,
Yeah.
and
Mhm.
that's not a bad solution. If you're a smaller firm, you want some really high-level talent, but you can't afford full-time.
Yeah.
That fractional, it's worth taking a look at. Uri,
Yeah.
any comments before we move on to our next set of data?
Yeah, I think as Morris said, you need somebody in-house. I mean, you need at least one person to flip the switches, to go in and to make sure people's monitors are attached. It's kind of silly, but that's a good use of having somebody in the firm. So even as a firm gets bigger and they're hiring professionals, seems to
Mhm.
have somebody inside. That's what I see.
Well,
Yeah, I
it,
think
it,
we
it it might
observed.
even be it might even be tiered. I think this aside from just tech, there's different service levels because there's doers, thinkers, and drivers. And the doers in this context might be help desk. To your point, Ari, you want someone that you can walk out of your office and say, "Hey, my computer's not working. Someone help me." And then there's those
Yep.
that are more on the strategic level, thinking and looking at the firm more mechanically. And then there's drivers where just, okay, here we need to get to this market standard, regardless of the resources necessary. This is where we need to be. And as we graduate in size, making sure that that starts to move in house at each of those three levels is key.
Mhm.
I think what we tend to see is that help desk is run inside in-house, somebody keep the lights on and the machines working, and then the more strategic, heavy lifting,
Yeah.
more likely to be outsourced at that more big picture strategic level. We asked about your firms. We've been pestering you on AI questions for a while now. How would you describe your firm's approach from these terms? And Uri, I'll invite your comment first off, just to spread it around as we go through our first questions.
Ooh, I'm going to rephrase this question, which is what best describes your firm's approach, forgive me, John, in looking towards future efficiencies at your firm? I think that's really what AI is, right? These are future efficiencies, and I'm disappointed to see that 73% of the people said we're very cautious about that. We don't want to become too efficient, but I'll pass to the experts on this, John.
Let me run around the horn here. And Morris, what do you think? AI, is this a surprising result, or
So it's not a surprising result. I'm going to say two things. First of all, we have a little bit of a section at the end of this today about AI, and then I'm giving two 90-minute workshops in Atlanta in 3 weeks from now on AI, and even that's not enough time to talk about everything going on in AI. But what I will say is we are still at the infancy stages of AI. And everybody, I agree with the 73%. Everybody knows it's coming, doesn't really know what it's going to be or how it's going to impact their business, but they're all saying, we got to do something about this. We don't know what we got to do, but we've got to embrace it somehow, not even knowing what it is.
we last year put out an AI community, managing partners interested in this and learning with and from each other and sort of that Chatham House rules environment. And it's been a slow grow, I will confess. We've got about 50 managing partners in there, and really starting to explore it. What vendors are you using? Do you have policy, training? Really starting to share some secrets among each other. 10% say they're leaning into it. Those that are really embracing it, Rosanna Berardi is probably one of our big examples in the managing partner community. Oh my goodness, she was just on the BBC being interviewed about immigration policy in the United States. She's a 12 lawyer immigration boutique in Buffalo, New York. And through Chat GPT AI, using it thoughtfully, she is like a globally recognized expert in what she does. And she's just contagious. I agree with you, Morris. There's a big opportunity here. We're just getting started, but don't wait too long, because this bus is going to be leaving soon, and you don't want to be left too far behind. 3%, looks like one, maybe two firms forbid it, which is interesting. Good luck with that. But that cautious, that's typical lawyer, skepticism, risk aversion showing up here as we look at something new. Morris, let me kick this over to you and ask you to kind of take us over and tell us what IT implementation really means. And then we'll follow along the
Sure.
outline that we've been working from. And
So the way that we've defined, or here we've defined implementations are quite simply they're projects or changes. IT implementation is not judging how good is our help desk or do we like this application that we've been using for the last 10 years for practice management. It relates to something that has changed. So if we are going to, for example, change our practice management system, or we're going to move to a new office and put in a whole new, IT and AV infrastructure, that's an implementation. It's not simply something day to day. And obviously, you know, a proper implementation, it will greatly increase your chances and probability of success. Poor implementation, we'll leave everybody asking, why did we do this thing again? We should have stuck with the old system.
well, we have our polling
And
question out there as you were talking, Morris. I've asked people
Mhm.
generally, how have your implementations, your
Right,
projects, been going the last 2 years? And
right.
you can see those results coming in. Come on, folks, vote, vote. I can see we have very light participation so far in this on this question. So let us know, how are those implementations going at your firm past couple of years. And I'll close this down. We can talk a little bit about these results. Only 33%, 32% say they're going very well. Half say okay.
All right. Good thing is that nobody is standing still when it comes to IT. Nobody hasn't changed a thing in 2 years, or maybe those people just didn't bother to come on the webinar today.
These people do self-select, the ones who are on our program today. So we got to factor that into these survey results. But there you go. There's room for improvement. So, Morris, why do some projects go really well and others look kind of like that?
So I'm going to start off. I don't want to steal everything from Corey because he had some really good insights in the prep. But what I'll say two things. First of all, is the right people, and secondly, is giving those people the right resources. When I say the right people, there's a very big difference between running an IT project or running any project for that matter and being a good IT engineer. And something that we learned here about 15 years ago is that our day-to-day support engineers, the guys that are behind the scenes, keeping things running, fixing the systems, getting it back up as soon as possible when it goes down, they're great at that. They were not good at running projects for us. And 15 years ago, we actually spun out our project team, our professional services team, as a separate team within the company. And you need good technical skills. Obviously, in any project, you have to understand the subject matter, but you need to know how to do project management, which is a whole area in and of itself. And then, of course, once you've given somebody that role and they're the right person, they need to have the right resources to get the job done. It's often not a one-person show.
Corey?
Um, yeah, I think I'd summarize the two things that need to go into project integration well should be diligence and tension. And what I mean by that is on the diligence side, what is it that we're actually solving for? What is the standard of effectiveness that we expect? Um, what should go into account for this equation? So, for example, more is better is not necessarily always true, but sometimes we think, oh, well, here's a new flashy, cool IT resource. Let me just throw it in the mix and think that now the world is going to be a brighter place. When that solution or that resource for whatever solution it's intended to offer might create three more problems unintended without intent. So having clear diligence on what do we actually need versus what we think we need, why do we actually need that, verifying that, how does this particular resource in an ecosystem of other resources offer that? Is it complementary to existing resources? Is it supplementary to existing resources? Is it duplicative? Is it redundant? And making sure that all of those boxes of diligence are thoroughly checked off before even introducing it. And then when we do introduce it, just like we'd expect others from a business perspective, submit it as a proposal versus just let's just grab it, throw it in there and see what happens. That's what I mean by diligence. On the tension piece is if we have someone in tech that believes based on their analysis, this would be a great resource, offering a conversation to have tension between other people in the firm to scrub it. So for example, when we're discussing potentially bringing in a new IT resource, I want my head of finance at the table. I want my head of administration at the table. I want my head of operations at the table because I want that tension to surface how it might potentially affect other organizational verticals. A way I've said this before, and this goes to not just the integration piece, but a leadership piece, is every player on the team has a different position and sees the game differently. For example, if we're thinking about how a dollar works through our firm, from billing that dollar to receiving it to paying out expenses and ultimately hitting our bottom line, development wants a big dollar. We don't always care how clean or how branded or how sophisticated that dollar is. Tech wants a sophisticated dollar. They want a system that is technically proficient for that dollar to flow through. Finance wants a clean dollar. They don't care what the system looks like. They just want a clean dollar. Marketing wants a branded dollar. They want to make sure it came in through the right branding vehicle. So everyone is observing the route of a dollar through our firm in a different way. And when we're discussing a resource that's going to affect their portion of that ecosystem, I want that tension to naturally be surfaced so that we can get a thorough investigation of what the reality might potentially entail. It's also a good accountability measure.
Corey, when we did our rehearsal, we were talking about integration, integration. And so often law firms, it's just piecemeal, one-offs, more band-aids. And we don't take a holistic, future-oriented look at this and how all these pieces are going to fit together. And, we see it all the time where firms spend lots of money on stuff and they don't use it. They don't
Yeah.
integrate it.
Yeah.
So much of this stuff is underutilized, and the training is woefully insufficient in many situations.
Yeah.
Uri, what are you seeing out there in your world?
I'm struck by two things. Number one is echoing what Corey said, which is the ripple effect. It's, somebody has a great idea, somebody has a technology piece. Don't just bring it in before you figure out how it's going to impact the different parts of the firm, right? That's
Mhm.
critical. And then from a big picture, what problem are we trying to solve? It starts as a business issue, and then the tech will
Right.
solve that often. And so many
Mhm.
times, Morris, you said it earlier, Corey, you said it beautifully, which is what's the strategy? It's not just we're not putting this new IT program in because Microsoft just released it. We're putting it out there because it's going to help our firm move forward with our business.
Right.
Or we've got
Right.
one
And
powerful partner that wants some little shiny object he or she just saw, and oh, we've got to have this.
I,
I mean,
yeah.
how often do you see that? I mean,
So
it's got
I
to be
will.
tough to manage.
We see that too often. And I mean, Corey, you said something. You used the word just before when you were speaking, and that's a red flag for us. You can't just do something. Let's just change our internet provider.
Mhm.
Let's just put, and I'm saying something as small as changing an ISP or switching our spam filter because this one partner doesn't like that too many emails get caught in spam. Let's
Mhm.
just switch from, I'm just going to throw out there, Mimecast to Proofpoint. You can't just do things. The bigger you are, the harder you'll fall when you just do something.
Yeah, lots
Yeah.
of ripple
And
effects. Yeah.
and John, we see it. I mean, our client managers who act as the fractional CIOs for our clients, at every single meeting, without fail, a partner will mention, "I saw this at another firm, or I saw this in somebody's office, or I read about this on whatever website or magazine."
Mhm.
And it's like
Yeah.
they want those
Oh,
shiny
yeah.
objects.
Yeah.
This guy had
Yeah, they do.
he had the coolest, it used to be the coolest telephone on their desk. Nobody uses telephones anymore, but I want this new laptop. I want this new program. He showed me he had an app for something or other.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
They
I mean,
want
the
those shiny
ABA Tech
objects.
Show, I mean, lots of shiny
Oh,
objects when you go to that exhibit hall, and
yeah,
you can't buy them all, and
yeah.
I think being thoughtful, deliberate. I think Corey, that concept of tension and
Mhm.
bringing in all your
Hmm.
players here as you assess how things interrelate.
Mhm.
And I see it all. CRM. Here's an example. We want to capture all this data so we can send stuff to our clients and know who knows who. That's contact relationship management, and that was all the rage. We got to have a CRM system. It's a fancy database. Garbage in, garbage out. Somebody's got to own it. I can't tell you how many firms buy six-figure CRM systems and don't use them.
Mhm.
Hmm.
You know, they just sit unused because lawyers won't share their contacts with the firm. You got to know your culture a little bit, what people are
Hmm.
willing to share, how willing they are to change and evolve and adapt. Here's
And
our
that's
question.
a
If you
good
haven't voted,
point in
folks,
that infrastructure drives behaviors, behaviors drive culture too. So in that tension, also thinking about what behaviors will this elicit, what precedents do those behaviors imply, and what's going to be the actual results from that. Looking 2 and 3 degrees removed from the system itself.
Morris, this is a question you asked us to throw into the mix, which is who leads these types of initiatives at your firm, and are we showing the poll results here, folks, or not?
I can see them. I don't know if everybody
Back
else
to poll
can.
list, go it here, which is who leads that technology effort. Any surprise to this? I'm looking at our
Share
clock.
the
We do have to pick up the pace a little bit.
John there. Share good.
Hmm.
Now, this is common. Typically, it's an IT project. Well, you're our internal IT resource, whoever that might be. You run it. Now, whether that resource is the right person to do that, has the right skills and qualifications, that's anybody's guess. Yes, they know the firm, they know the systems, they're responsible for the day to day. But very often we see that when somebody who's normally tasked with day to day, tactical work is tasked with a more strategic project, it gets done, 75% of, you get 75% of the way there is what we typically see.
So, what do you see as the common mistakes, Morris? You're involved in a lot of these initiatives and various projects and such. What do you
Yeah.
see as the most common mistakes that firms should avoid?
So the first thing is I'd say putting the cart before the horse. Oh, I was at a firm yesterday. I'm just going to pick on LMS for a minute on SurePoint because I was on a call earlier today with SurePoint. They're on SurePoint LMS and they love it, and we should switch to LMS because it has these two features. Wait a minute. Don't focus on the shiny new object. What's the root of? Is there an issue to begin with? And if there is an issue, let's get to the root of it. They, now sometimes when they're talking about the issue, they focus on the wrong problems. Oh, people don't enter their time because it's hard to enter their time. No, people are not entering their time. It's not because it's difficult to do time entry. It's because lawyers don't like entering their time, no matter how easy you make it for them. But then there's a lack of objectivity when they're evaluating vendors. Sometimes they'll just talk to, again, if you talk to a SurePoint sales rep, they're going to tell you that SurePoint has the best product to solve your needs. They're not going to tell you to go out and look for the other options. Right. Then there's also a disconnect between the decision maker, the one who's complaining the most, and the person who's actually responsible for doing the implementation. There might be a lack of accountability. And what very often happens is 6 months or 1 year later, when the CFO is saying we've spent all this money, well, what did we spend this money? What was the point of the project? Why did we even do that? What was the problem we were looking to solve? And nobody knows. And there's a lack of accountability. And either you've never implemented it, but you spent all this money, or you did implement it, but it just caused more problems than it solved. But it's because, again, there's no intentionality. Corey, that's a word I get from you a lot. Mm-hmm. We've got so much going on. There's so many moving pieces.
That initial proposal is valuable because we can reference it halfway through running through the forest of a new project and after. And when we do have that short-term memory to go, what were we doing anyway? What was the point of this? We can refer back to that document and go, oh, here's what we were doing. Here's why we solved it. Here's the mindset we were in at that time. And we can more concretely verify whether it was still the appropriate investment or not.
Yeah, we actually created a document like that for use internally because we do projects all the time for ourselves. And we call it our project charter template. It's a 2-page PDF that we just fill out at the beginning. Like, okay, we're about to embark on this journey. Why are we doing this? Let's be very clear. So in 6 months from now, we could refer back to it and make sure we're sticking to our goals.
Yeah.
I'm going to jump ahead, guys. We got about 20 minutes left, and a lot of material to try to get through. So I'm going to move along. We want to do a deeper dive into about 3 or 4 topics, which we will. 3 or 4 minutes on each of these topics, and there's our little fella diving deep. And let's first talk about Chat GPT.
John, I have to say, I'm glad for the deeper dive slide. You didn't pick the cover to Nirvana's Nevermind album.
I've been using the puppy dogs lately on iStock Photo. They've got some cute little guys there that I've been working in. But generative AI, we talked a little bit about firms, their cautiousness, their reluctance to dive into this.
Talk about shiny new objects. I mean, Gen AI or AI in general is the shiniest of shiny objects. Everybody wants it, but like we said, they're not sure really why they want it or what it can do or how it's going to impact the firm. All I'll say is we're in our infancy stages. It is the Wild West. 3 years ago, I was saying cybersecurity is the Wild West, which is still somewhat true. AI is much more. Every day I meet a new AI expert, and they're self-proclaimed. It's like kind of like the Kardashians. They're famous for being famous. People will go on GPT, say, what do I need to do to be an AI expert? 15 minutes later, they are advertising themselves on LinkedIn as an AI expert.
So figure it out on ChatGPT. That's what I'll do.
It's hard to follow a Kardashian reference, but why don't we try? Morris, put you on the spot. What's one short-term generative AI topic people should be focusing on, and what's one mid-range, 3 to 6 months they should be focusing on? Because as you said, we're being hit from a million different sides.
Yeah. Short-term are what business aspects of the law firm can they apply AI to? For example, financial reporting, collections, or biz dev and marketing. Midterm is how, once AI makes its way into the practice of law, how are we going to monetize this? And when we're here billing hourly, how are we going to and this is, again, sneak peek. These are both areas that are covered in the presentation I'm giving in Atlanta in 3 weeks.
Well, and
Corey?
this is a big call conversation in our Zoom groups is the billing implications
Mhm.
because it does create efficiencies, and we live the billable hour, and
Yeah.
how do we price for this, and more value-based billing approaches, I think. Corey?
I mean, generative AI or AI, it just as a word is so broad that it could mean so many different things, and folks get lost, especially with all the sensationalism that surrounds it. So I think being very clear and taking inventory of what specific AI systems we're talking about, then going over their usage, then going over policy that may or may not be necessary with the ethical codes that are in correspondence with it, then going over, okay, now what do I want to restrict versus what do I want to allow utility of? Mapping that out and getting that in a decently drafted matrix will allow for folks to step away from kind of the overwhelming fear of AI and go, okay, this is really what I'm talking about. These three systems, here's really what they are. And then at that point, it becomes a little more specific, and then we can make more granular, more intentional decisions versus thinking of it as one big ocean to either swim in or run from.
As I mentioned earlier, we're trying to build this AI community to help managing partners through this.
Yeah.
You don't know what you don't know. You're a managing partner. You're a lawyer, and this is all happening so fast. It's very complex, and lawyers being timid and skeptical are slow to step in. But start playing with it is one of the advices we give is just, go download Chat GPT, start playing with it, become familiar with it. And
Mhm.
it's so easy to catch on and see how this might could be applied to a marketing business development context. Client communication, soften this email for me.
Mhm.
Because lawyers can often be the bearers of not the best news, and just running that through Chat
Yeah.
GPT. I'm doing that all the time. It's amazing how it can take an email or a letter or a program announcement and just really tweak it up a little bit. You don't just cut and
Hmm.
paste it blindly, but boy, what a great tool. Uri, you want it in here, and then I got to keep jumping a little bit.
Well, I actually just wanted to move on, John. Compliance issues, gentlemen. Morris,
You're
So
Corey,
I'll
giving
say
what?
you're kicking me in the butt here. Is that what's going on, good friend?
uh,
All right, all
A
so
little
right.
bit.
compliance, I'll say this. Compliance is really about documentation and controls. It's nothing exciting. It's
Mm,
nothing, the way compliance moves a firm forward, so it is related to cyber, which I know is our next slide, but compliance is something that it moves firm forward because you need to be compliant in order to get some of the business that you want to get. And a lot of my experience with this is that we're NIST compliant. So we went through a whole audit and process to
mm.
achieve NIST compliance back in the day, and we go through it every couple of years again. Don't expect anyone to ever be excited about compliance. It's about checking a box. It's not fun. It's not shiny. It's just something you got to do.
It's something you got
Well,
to do. Exactly.
how about compliance with client guidelines and client
Yeah.
demands, Corey? And maybe that can bleed into cybersecurity just the same. Corey, what kind of compliance pressure do you get as opposed on the technology side from your clients?
So it depends on the clients. We do have some corporate clients that their
Hmm.
concern is one, product integrity, and two,
Hmm.
cybersecurity. So that's one vertical of AI, and at that point, it's more so compliance with a series of potential audits to make sure that we have a protected environment. In terms of usage, though, it's framing it to go, okay, well, AI, and John, I think there's the example you were discussing earlier. It's not a supplement of the professional; it's an extension of the professional. So if you're leveraging AI as an extension of yourself to say, hey, here's a script, here's how I wrote it, can you make it nicer? Um, that's still your intellectual capacity at play. It's not supplementing anything. It's just extending it, and it's no different than perhaps looking up synonyms for some of the words that you might have
Like
put in that
a
body.
thesaurus, right? Right. The
You know,
old
so
fashioned
if
thesaurus.
yeah, so if you send me an email, John, I have no way of discerning whether that email was crafted in part by AI or not. I'm just receiving an email from John. So at the end of the day, when we're looking at usage, it's, well, how are we framing that? And are we doing so in a way that prompts folks to, at their discretion and while still remaining with integrity, use AI as an extension, just as any other resource might be, rather than a supplementation?
You want to talk a little bit about cyber? We got 15 minutes.
But what I'll say about cyber is, again, cybersecurity is a necessity. Where we see a lot of resistance to implement cyber products. I'm just going to say again, there's so many different ones out there. Is it's change management and a poor people are resistant because they're scared of the short-term effects. So first example, you put a new spam filtering system in, it may catch a few real emails. Or you put a new, rolling out a multi-factor authentication system is notoriously painful for about 3 hours. But we've seen firms resistant to that because, these attorneys, these rainmakers, they're not going to want to do MFA. Well, that's okay. They don't have to want to do it. They probably also don't want to double lock their house when they leave for the day. But you know what? They do it. But they're resistant to implement certain cybersecurity measures because they're inconvenient. That's what we see the most. And again, there's processes we've developed to do these things, whether it's, lately it's been compliance management. MFA is like, that's 3 years ago for us. Compliance management, people don't want
And
to
that's
do it because they're
multi-factor
worried.
authentication, right, Morris?
It's
MFA, just for
compliance management
clarification,
MFA is multi-factor, yes, but
factor
compliance
authentication,
management is
right?
more than that.
Implementing
That
the
again,
system and making
yeah.
sure people do it.
Once it's rolled out, it's seamless, it's great. You wonder how you ever lived without it. But that first day, everybody's scared of that first day when things don't work. So they just kick the can down the road. And unfortunately, sometimes they learn the hard way. Oops, I wish we did that.
Yeah.
And again, and cyber
Shouldn't take
also,
them.
I will say one last thing. Cyber is a different DNA than IT support. It's just a different skill set. It's a different mindset.
Don't
realize that.
and this is prevention, right? Prevention. And law firms will wait and will cure it. An ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure because, boy, getting hacked is no fun.
But it's
Uri, you're
but it's
right in
profitable for
policy and
those of us on the other side of it.
insurance, cyber insurance. Anything going on there we need to know about?
Review those policies. The policies are literally getting worse with each renewal. It's shocking. You can often fix it, but the insurance companies are pushing to limit that coverage on each renewal. So you just really got to be on top of it. And most of your brokers can do that. But yeah, you have to be on top of it.
You've mentioned they'll slip those provisions on page 37 of your policy. And if
It's
you're not paying
unbelievable.
attention, you don't know what they're putting in there. And it's tedious to read through those contracts, but boy, pay attention to what you're signing off on. Yeah.
Yep,
Well, and
exactly.
I'd marry the insurance with cybersecurity because the more diligence you can demonstrate before your provider, the better the coverage. So if you can administer cybersecurity training, demonstrate 100% compliance, account for multiple layers of protections, it just makes that renewal conversation that much easier.
Yep.
We actually like that the insurance agencies are demanding all of this of the firms. It makes our job easier.
Yeah.
You're welcome.
And changes. We talk about how lawyers aren't wild about risk and change, but software changes. Morris, you wanted me to make sure we had this slide in.
Yeah, I mean, this is something like, for example, changing your practice management system. This is a front of house change. Everybody will see this every single day. Unlike changing your antivirus product that most people don't even notice. So this has the biggest impact, and the biggest problem we've seen here is poor end user adoption, which is generally caused because of a poor project management. Oh, we're going to change software. Here's the new one. Here's some training on it. Read the manual, and the new one's going to be up next Tuesday morning. I mean, a software change, like changing a piece of software that everybody lives and breathes on, requires a huge amount of project management, end user adoption, testing, and really what we call a project champion, that internal person that's going to be the go-to for everybody when they can't figure out how to do something because they didn't go to the training or they didn't pay attention to the training or they're doing 50 other things and they don't remember it.
Right.
And again, this is where we've had that project charter document come in very, very handy a few times.
And we're going to include that in our follow-up, right? If people want to get that document
they
to which we'll refer, we'll have a link in there. People can request it from you.
We're lower tech than that. Send me an email. You'll have my email at the end. Just send me an email and say the words Project Charter, and I'll share that PDF with you. And full transparency, I didn't invent it. I got it from somebody else a few years ago, and I've made my modifications. So you have my creative license to make your edits to it as well.
Hey, Corey, any tips on software changes in a law firm?
I think everything is sales, and so when you are introducing a new resource, sell it, sell. Everyone wants to know, how does this make my life better? Start with those selling points and center them around that. Perhaps it's with a champion, perhaps it's with a champion dedicated to that resource, perhaps it's in individual conversations. But at the end of the day, it's here's how you are actually going to have a better working experience. Here's how your clients are going to be impacted with this new software.
And this is
Yeah,
our
I
last
agree.
polling question we're putting up there. If y'all would just take a few minutes, your biggest concerns when you're looking at IT implementation issues. And we put up a few. Pick one from that list. Morris, you want us to run through what you're seeing, the concerns, and whether they're
Yeah.
legitimate or not?
Number one by far and away is user adoption. Lawyers are resistant to change. Even though they may complain about the system or the product or whatever it might be, they'd rather live with it than change it or end it. Which is not,
Talking
that's not
about
unique to
habits,
lawyers.
right? Breaking habits,
Yeah,
training new habits. And we are all creatures of habit, and
yeah,
learning new habits takes
yeah.
some time at
And
first.
like Corey said, you've got to sell them on it.
Mhm.
Sell them on it. There is a reason. Remember, this is why we're doing this project. And we all agreed to it in the beginning.
Mhm. Yeah, I see no net impact to be kind of like a catch-all for all of them, because at the end of the day, every resource is to yield an intentional impact to the firm. So I think user adoption kind of feeds into that one. And with user adoption, at the end of the day, we do things out of two reasons: commitment or compliance. You're either committed to the advancement of what we're building, or you're compliant with
Mhm.
it. And at the end, I'd prefer commitment, but if that's not an option, then we'll revert to compliance. And at that point, then it's like, okay, well, we might actually put systems in place where you have no choice but to comply. Um, and creating the system so that it just is what it is. But I think that kind of maybe falls on firm culture a little bit, to whether that's appropriate or not.
Uri, this is a familiar face toward the close of our programs, and there's our inquisitive managing partner. So, okay, interesting conversation, gang. What the hell should I do? What's a firm leader to do? And I asked Morris to give us his guidance that he might dispense to a managing partner wanting to tune into technology and think a little bit more strategically. Corey, I'll invite anything you want to add to this, but walk us through those points of guidance, Morris.
Yes. So number one, whenever you're looking at any implementation, you've got to think strategically. Again, what does this mean to the firm? How will this impact us? What are the problems we're looking to solve? The next one is actually better than the right IT team is the right leadership team. Depending on the size of the project, is this a one-person project? Is it a five-person project? Make sure that team understands their responsibility. It's not just deploying it and finishing it up. It's actually getting the firm to adopt it and understand it and utilize it. Those two terms I put there, RPRS, these come from EOS, which is the methodology we run here. Right person, right seat. Again, your best IT help desk person may be the complete wrong person to roll out a new piece of software. And GWC stands for gets it, wants it, and capacity to do it. And we use that in evaluating all of our employees here. Do they get the job? Do they want the job? And are they capable to do the job? The right people, and also asking the right questions when you're evaluating, a project. Should we undertake this or not? Ask the right questions of your team. That's your job as a leader. If you don't ask the right questions, you'll never get the right answers. And again, this stuff is kind of table stakes for everything in business.
Yeah.
Hold the people accountable.
Yeah, I'd agree. And I'd say there's 4 layers to this, and it's depending on size and resource. The first layer, and I think I kind of alluded to this earlier, is doing. If you're a small firm and it's all on your shoulders, you just got to drive a lot of doing. The second is thinking, that's strategy, to where you have doers in place, but you have to offer that strategic counsel on how we're going about doing what we're doing. If you've got thinkers and doers in place, then it's accountability. holding your thinkers accountable and so that they can hold the doers accountable.
Mhm.
And if you've built that much infrastructure and you've scaled to the degree that you've now got doers, you've got thinkers, and you've got accountability drivers, the fourth is vision. Having a very clear understanding of who we are, who we're not, what we are, what we're not, our specific niche in the market, and where we need to be, so that we have a coherent and consistent rubric of what everything needs to fit into as we drive the shop
Rubric.
forward. Yes,
Good
a
word.
rubric,
I like
a
that one, a
framework,
rubric. Ooh,
because
like
everything is either in alignment with that or not. But it
it.
depends on where we're at. It depends on the resources we have. So thinkers, doers, accountability drivers, vision drivers, or vision
You know,
setters.
Corey, we still see it amongst firms this size. It's a collection of sole practitioners share an office space. They all do what they want, how they want, uh, decentralized operations and processes and procedures. And boy, if we can just think as a firm, as a team with a vision, each of us contributing in different ways to the firm's vision and goals. But that's a hard thing to do. It's easier said than done with a room full of lawyers who often have disparate opinions and priorities and love their autonomy. I don't want to be led. I don't want to be managed. I don't want to be held accountable. I
Mhm.
like my autonomy, and that's why I come to a smaller and mid-sized firm, so I
Mhm.
can get autonomy, and big law's not going to be breathing down my neck telling me how to run my practice. That's what I see.
I think
Uri,
that's really common, and folks either have to, that conversation has to happen, and it can't be a kick the can down the road conversation that just repeats itself year after year after year after year. Because then, let's say that happens for 5 years, everyone in that firm hasn't experienced 5 years of collective growth. They've experienced 1 year repeated 5 times.
yep.
And if perhaps that's something that they're comfortable with and they're all very conscientious of, then it works. But if the idea is to grow, scale, remain competitive, and demonstrate a greater presence in the market, then at the end of the day, there has to be a rubric, and that rubric has to be led through a consistent fuel source. You know,
I love that word, rubric, Corey. I'm gonna start using that more. I like that one. That's a good one. We're at that time, and so thank you, Morris and Corey and Uri for being with us this afternoon. Our conference coming up, we mentioned it earlier. We are officially sold out, but if anybody really wants to pry their way in, reach out to me. We can probably make that happen. As well, our AI community, I mentioned that, and it's coming along. We do a webinar series. We got a listserv. Tony DeSimone is my kind of colleague in this little endeavor, and that's not a bad thing if you want to jump on the AI situation, get ahead of the curve. Check us out there, and we'll include information about it in our follow-up. Uri, wanted you to take our closing slide, and then we'll call it a day.
Sure. Thanks, John. This has been a great session. I would just want to say one sentence about what we've talked about today. A lot of great ideas, but the takeaway that I took today is that IT actions, plans, programs, software needs to be integrated with the firm's strategic plan. There has to be a business reason and a business process. So I thought this was an excellent discussion. Reminders, our next MPF webinar will be on May 14th. We had some conflicts around then. May 14th, 2 p.m. You'll, of course, hear from us as it gets closer, but you can mark your calendar too. May 14th, 2 p.m. Today's program has been recorded. We will be forwarding that out to you, as well as with the handout materials and the polling results from the registration, as well as what we generated during today's program. And this is my final pitch. Final pitch. Give us your feedback. 3 questions:
What's
what you liked, what you like least, what do you want to see more of in the future? Help us help you. And thank you to Ninesail. Ninesail does our beautiful recaps, and they're indispensable. So, John, why don't you close
Yep.
us out?
Yep, thank you. And next month we're going to do a recap of our leadership conference and invite a couple
Yes.
of managing partners who come and ask them to share with us what they learned, what they took away, and so that should be a great show. We'll showcase some of our audience polling data and stuff like that from the live conference. We're moving it up a week. Just due to scheduling conflicts. So May 14 will be the date. Corey, thank you. I think each of us would be open if you want to send us that email. You want to get Morris's uh, rubric. Is that what more? No.
No, but I'm
Corey's
going to
got the
call it a
rubric.
rubric in your honor, John.
Corey's got the rubric. So here's our contact information. You know where to find us, everybody. It's 3 o'clock. We're on time. Enjoy the rest of your afternoon. Thanks for being with us, and we'll see you hopefully at a future MPF event in the near future. Thanks, everybody.
Take care, everybody. Bye bye.
Thanks.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye all.